I'm here at the Federal Conservative Leadership Convention. I'm sitting here with the candidate, Chris Alexander. You're a member of Parliament. Thank you, first of all, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And just one small update. I lost the last election, so I'm not a member of Parliament. I was for 4 years, and I was proud to be both the Parliamentary Secretary for National Defence, so working very closely with Peter MacKay and everyone in the forces, and then the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration before that 2015 election, which we lost. But you lose a lot. You learn most from your defeats, and so I've really enjoyed the last year and a half, and especially this leadership campaign where we get the chance to renew our vision of what Canada can be.
You're over in Afghanistan. You saw what the Canadian troops went through. You experienced an awful lot. What I want you to do, a lot of Canadians are not familiar when it comes to sending the troops overseas, whether it's peacekeeping or to Afghanistan. They're not sure what the troops went through. You saw front line. I want you to share a little bit of what you saw.
You're right. It's almost impossible to convey unless you've been there. It's a very different country. It's a very different experience, even for them, from normal life on a base in Canada. You're away from your family, you're eating different food, you're away from the base a lot of the time in the case of our forward operating bases and our units that were on patrol and so forth. And you're dealing with stress and uncertainty. Operational plans change. When you're going home changes. The situation on a battlefield changes every minute. And it's that stress that I think is most shocking for people, and people don't realize how much they've been changed by it until afterwards. We live in such a peaceful country. We have our challenges, missing and murdered, Indigenous women, tough neighborhoods in some cities, but compared to a war zone, compared to Afghanistan, you can't really draw a more stark contrast. And so living with the prospect of having your legs blown off or your buddies killed, or in my case, working in an embassy and in the UN, knowing that my team were out there in a place that, without a lot of protection, facing uncertainty. And I did have people whose vehicles were in IED strikes, none killed, none even seriously injured, who worked directly for me, but this was a reality. And so it affects you psychologically, it affects you physically, it's a challenge, but let me also say, it gets the best out of people. People want to be there. We train for this in the Canadian Forces and all the people that went, and it's an amazing contrast between the misery, the pain, and the stress of uncertainty, the misery and pain that Afghans were going through on the one hand, and then the great humanity and the courage and the bravery that people displayed, especially Canadians, day in, day out. So I guess what we have to understand is that when you put people out there in Kandahar or on patrol in Kabul, where they started in 2003, you suddenly see the absolute pinnacle of human achievement, and then the absolute depths of despair, and the worst kinds of human experience side by side. That's what conflict and war zones do, and we have to respect the fact that 40,000 Canadians brought that experience back home with them. And dealing with this normality, this boring, calm, even-keeled society that we're in is very hard for someone who's come out of that experience. And hence the challenge of PTSD, hence alcoholism, drug addiction, which can be big issues. These are all challenges of adaptation, which we have to understand better, work to anticipate more.
I sat down with retired Master Corporal Paul Franklin, retired Major Mark Campbell. Now, what's happening with Mark Campbell, his wife within the military, D&D turned to him and said, oh, by the way, we're going to kick your wife out. She's not going to get a penny because her PTSD was caused by you. Both of the gentlemen lost their leg they served their nation. You know, I'm a big time advocate. Let's return the lifetime pension back to the younger veterans. The new Veterans Charter is a lot better than the old one, but it needs to be tweaked. It is a living entity.
I agree. It needs to be updated. It's not perfect. We're learning certainly every year. I hope even faster than that. I would like to see it updated and adapted to the needs of that we see among veterans, especially young veterans, that weren't anticipated, that weren't well understood with the last wave of reforms. And I would commit to doing that. I mean, I'm not going to sit here today and say I have the latest analysis, the best solutions. But with good intent, with the right set of priorities, I think a new Conservative government could make a big difference on that front, and I would definitely commit to being part of that. Listen, my wife is a veteran. I mean, she's still a reservist, Danish Army captain who came to Afghanistan with ISAF too, you know, even before Canada was there in a big way in ISAF. And does she have PTSD? No, not clinically diagnosed. But was she changed by the experience? Absolutely. So was I, even as a civilian. And so we support each other, and we know that everyone who's been through this experience, even a normal career in the Canadian Forces, can have serious issues that need to be handled with sensitivity, with the right resources, and with a tailor-made solution. You know, we run into problems here when bureaucracy comes between the goodwill of the Canadian people and the needs of our veterans. We're in an age when we should be able to do better and take away the phenomenon of a round peg not fitting into a square hole. You know, we've got to find the solution that fits the need.
Well, I think one thing that should happen is that whatever policies are put forth, make sure that you include the veterans, that not only veterans went to Afghanistan, but the ones that went into peacekeeping, in order to draw up the new policies. You know, as we leave this leadership convention, the new leader gets wins. What kind of policies do you want to see come out of this as you're heading towards the next federal election, 2019?
Well, first, I put forward a lot of policies, but the three that I think are most relevant to our conversation here are these. First, we need to be serious about defense, and that includes being more serious about veterans. We are underperforming. I mean, I can say that not just as a conservative or as a talking point, it's literally true. As a percentage of GDP, as a contributor to the mission still continuing in Afghanistan, and certainly the combat missions over Syria and Iraq, I would like to see us become a reliable ally again and invest on a level that means we're really, for the first time, looking after our sovereignty and playing our full role in the world. Secondly, we got to do healthcare differently and deliver in a modern way and allocate resources better. It's mostly a provincial responsibility, but the federal government has a big part of the action when it comes to military members, RCMP, veterans, and Indigenous Canadians. And I think the federal government should take the lead in breaking new ground, innovating on mental health, on digital healthcare records, on delivery, primary care especially, but also specialized forms of delivery for those communities. And then finally, I want to see us, and this is a general point, but I want to see us be a caring country where we trust each other enough to reach out and help. You know, why are we the only country in the world that has a private sponsored program for refugees? Because we trust Canadians in their church groups, in their mosques, in their community groups, to actually deliver for the world's most vulnerable. We have the highest rate of volunteer work in Canada. Let's build up that trust. Let's use it to help veterans, because my sense is that the biggest thing we could do for veterans is recognition, building bridges, talking about these issues, having it at the center of our national debate always. We're not going to stop our military commitments. The world is a dangerous place. Canada needs to be part of solving those issues. So let's get ahead of it and recognize that doing our part involves having these debates constantly and updating what our programs and our support constantly.
I want to thank you, Chris, for your time, and just keep up the great work.
Thanks for being here. Great to be with you.